everybody. This is Ashlee Kolstad coming to you from Milton Public Library. And today we're recording our very first episode of our travel series. It's called Travel with MPL. And so this podcast is to go along with our new MPL Travel with MPL kits that we put together. And so the goal of our podcast is to interview people who have gone to certain locations around the world, tell us about their experiences so that you can experience it with them, or decide if you want to experience it yourself and go there yourself. So normally I would be asking the questions, but since I'm the person who has traveled to this location today, Ashlee Kunkel will be asking me the questions. I'll be answering them today.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So we are very excited to launch these travel kits and this travel podcast. So if any of you have traveled to any of the locations, Ashlee, what are the locations again?
So we have Peru, Australia, Ireland. I should know these. Alaska. It's not another country, but a different location, and Japan.
Yep. And then we also added
and India.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody has traveled to those locations and would love to talk to us about it, we would be thrilled to interview you for this podcast.
Yep, I would love it.
Yep. All right. Are you ready, Ashlee?
I'm ready.
All right. So we do have, Ashlee had a whole bunch of pictures put together for her travels to obviously Peru, Machu Picchu. So when did you go and how long did you go?
I went to Peru with my husband in 2018, before the pandemic, and we went for a week.
And why did you decide to travel there?
We decided to go, number one, because we were going to go someplace, and number two, why not go to Machu Picchu? Kind of was our idea. And I also speak Spanish, and so I wanted to go someplace where I could speak Spanish as well, because I love it.
Have you always kind of wanted to go there? Has that always been like a bucket list? Because you like to travel a lot, correct?
Yes, I do like to travel. Yes, I've always wanted to go there. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. So I think it's on a lot of people's lists. And so we just made the decision to go and went.
Nice.
No kids.
No kids. Hey, even better, right? So when you traveled, did you go off the beaten path, outside the touristy areas and attractions, or did you kind of like stick to the travel book and did the travel things?
So we did a little bit of both, and I can explain with some of I could explain what we kind of did in the slides here. So our goal was to ultimately see Machu Picchu, but in order to do that, we had to go to Lima and then fly to Cuzco. So you can see this all on this map. And then we stayed in this town called Ollantaytambo that you can see there. And then we took a train to get to Machu Picchu because it's in the Andes and is very hard to get to. So part of it was, yes, we were seeing some of the touristy things, which is Cuzco for sure is touristy, and Machu Picchu is for sure touristy, but Ollantaytambo is less touristy. And there we stayed with an Airbnb with in somebody's home. So we were off the beaten path there. And we got to experience kind of like their home life, like what people there live like, and what they eat and things like that. So
did you do a lot of research prior to this travel, or did you kind of wing it?
I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research. I read some of the books that I put in the kit, actually. And one of the travel books that I really loved, I put in the kit as well. That was really helpful when we eventually got to Machu Picchu. And that was about it. It was mainly a lot of like planning how we were going to get from one place to another, but the in-between stuff, we didn't necessarily plan that much because weather could change your plans. How you're feeling, because there's a lot of like altitude related illnesses you can have and things like that. So
did you suffer any illnesses?
I did.
Oh no.
I had altitude sickness.
Oh no.
When we first got there. And so here's a list of kind of like what you can experience. I experienced like the headache and lightheadedness and fatigue because as you can see in the previous slide, Milton's at 889 feet above sea level, and Cuzco is 11,000 feet above sea level. And so when we flew into Cuzco, our idea was we were going to stay in Ollantaytambo, which is 9,000 feet above sea level, but still that's really, really a lot.
Quite a difference.
So at the airport, they have coca leaves, which eventually makes cocaine if you want to process it into that. But people use it there. The natives use it there. They chew on it in the high altitudes to combat the effects of altitude sickness. And you can also make it into tea. So I did both.
And it seemed to work.
It worked. Within 24 hours, I was feeling good and I climbed mountains.
Hey,
yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's what they look like. The natives also use them to like as offerings, things like that. So
that's cool. So you said you stayed with a family at an Airbnb. How was that experience kind of living with locals and kind of getting to know them?
It was awesome because we were basically renting a room from them, and she had a daughter who went to school, and her husband ran like a tour company in Cuzco. So he was gone sometimes. And so this was an extra stream of income for them. So like we shared the bathroom with them. And, we had to get water from a certain place to make sure it was safe. But she lived down a really awesome, like old part of the town that had like old Inca streets and old Inca walls. And so that part was really, really cool because like we were walking past some places that were like really modern that people probably pay for with like tour companies. And we were really glad that we didn't stay there because then we got a more authentic experience. And then she also made handicrafts. So I bought some earrings from her, and we had a lunch and a breakfast with her at one point. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, we got local recommendations. So that was really nice.
So it adds a little bit more to your whole experience. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. So I just have a couple of pictures of Ollantaytambo. The first picture on this slide is a picture from our room that we were staying in. I don't know if you can see it from across the way, but across the way are the Ollantaytambo ruins. So we had a view of them from where we were staying. So
that's really cool.
So these are just some of the pictures of Ollantaytambo in the valley of the mountains.
So speaking of experiences, what is your best experience that's non-food? We'll definitely talk about food that you had while you were there.
It was definitely staying here. That was my number one experience.
That's awesome.
As soon as we got to the Airbnb and I looked around and I saw Ollantaytambo, I just started crying. It's like my favorite place even now today.
Really?
And my husband Jake was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "It's just so beautiful and it's like where I'm supposed to be." And so that was my favorite place, walking around Ollantaytambo and like the old parts of the city and just seeing people living their lives was the best part for me.
So it kind of sounds like you would definitely go back.
I would definitely go back, and not to Machu Picchu.
Yeah, to there.
I would go back here. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about food?
Oh yeah, I do have some slides actually further on if we want to wait.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it so much. They have ruins there too, though, that are maybe like the second most important after Machu Picchu. So we climbed to the top and we bought some handicrafts from local artisans wearing traditional Inca clothing, or some traditional Inca clothing. So let's see.
Was there anything that was unexpected?
Yes.
About that place or your travels to Machu Picchu or anything?
Yeah. So Machu Picchu, I think, is my most unexpected, and I know later down the list you were going to ask what was my most overrated experience, and that was also Machu Picchu.
Really?
I don't want to burst anybody's bubble out there, but yes, go and see it, but you don't need to see it more than once.
Yeah.
Getting there is quite a haul. You have to first get to the city of Aguas Calientes, and then you have to get on a bus or hike up this mountain to see it. And people wake up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to get on the first bus to be up there first. But it is so crowded. Like you think in your brain that this is going to be so amazing and magical, but you don't like anticipate the amount of people when you're imagining it. And so that really kind of like burst my bubble right away. And when we got up there, and all the tour guides that are waiting on the top that speak every language imaginable, waiting for people to just come and give tours. And we were just kind of like put off by that. And we were prepared to just walk through by ourselves. So I don't know, just the amount, you don't imagine the amount of people. And we went during like an in-between season too. So it wasn't
Okay.
like high season and it wasn't low season. Yeah, that part wasn't great. But seeing Machu Picchu, as you can see from my pictures, I mean, it's still magical.
Yeah.
You just got to be prepared mentally, I think, for the amount of people that are going to be there. So
kind of ruins the
I don't know.
experience a little
Yeah,
bit.
it does.
And I see that it's pretty foggy in those pictures. Did that kind of hide the experience a little bit too?
It was just the day.
Okay.
It was just kind of the morning because we woke up at 4 a.m. to get in line for the buses. And it was just kind of a wet, rainy morning.
Yeah.
I don't think it took away from anything. It kind of made it more like mystical and magical. So
maybe hide some of those people, all those people that are there.
Yeah, like we didn't get the traditional view that you would normally see, like when you get to that viewpoint. But we kind of waited it out because you can be there as long as you want when you're there. So we kind of waited it out to see if it would clear, and it kind of did.
Yeah.
Towards the end. The day before it was like sunny and we didn't go. Of course, we didn't have tickets for that day. So okay. Well, I'll just scroll through some of the pictures to get an idea of what we were seeing at Machu Picchu.
And how long were you there? Would you say?
At Machu Picchu?
Yeah. For the day.
4 hours.
4 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
And you felt like that was enough time to kind of explore everything and move around the people?
Yeah. We had hiked there. So with your ticket, you get access to part of the Inca Trail. So like one option of seeing Machu Picchu is doing it the way we did, is going to the town of Aguas Calientes and then getting on a bus or hiking up to Machu Picchu because that's the closest town. The second option that some people like to do is do the 3 or 5 day hiking experience through the Andes on the Inca Trail. And so you have access to that part of the Inca Trail where people will traditionally come in from hiking. So we did part of that when we were there because our ticket covered some of it. And there's a higher peak that goes like way above Machu Picchu and Machu Picchu Mountain that you have to pay extra for, which we didn't pay for, and which we're kind of glad we didn't because I don't even think they were open with the weather that we were experiencing. There we go. So there's some kind of cool pictures that we took while we were there. There we go. Yeah. So Machu Picchu is literally on top of a mountain in the Andes, which is why it's so hard to get there and why it's one of the wonders of the world. Some of the things to know if you're planning on going to Machu Picchu is that when you get there, you can only travel through the ruins one way. So if you think that you forgot something, you cannot turn around and go back and see it. And luckily we were tipped off by a local about this because we were staying at like a hostel that night. So we knew that to like take our time, figure out where we were, and like let people go by us so that we wouldn't like miss something that we didn't want to miss. So I think that's something, if you don't know, you maybe think, oh, I can just turn around and go and see it, but you can't. They won't let you, the workers there.
Yeah. I suppose with the amount of people that come through, they just have to keep the flow going.
Yeah, I think so.
And everything.
And the other fun thing is that you can get your passport stamped at Machu Picchu. They have a special passport stamp. I have a picture of it someplace that I'll go through. That's my husband, Jake. There we go. There's our Machu Picchu stamp. You have to do it yourself and you have to kind of look for it. But it's kind of like a hidden gem.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, and don't forget sunscreen, because us in Wisconsin don't think about this, but since you're so high up in altitude,
a little closer to the sun.
Yeah, you're a lot closer to the sun. So don't forget that even on a bad day. So, yeah.
So it kind of sounds like you would obviously recommend that others obviously visit this place.
Yes. Once.
That's it.
Like get your time in.
Yeah.
And then go see some of the other local ruins that maybe aren't visited, like Ollantaytambo, a lot, because you can see a lot of the same elements that you would see at Machu Picchu, just with a lot less crowds.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some hidden areas that aren't really so well known.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's a ticket that you can buy in Cusco, and it's like an anthropological ticket of some sort that will get you into a lot of these sites. They just get stamped, and it'll get you into a lot of the local museums too. So you can buy this ticket and then just bring it along with you to all these places, and it's like one flat rate. So it can really go far, like getting you into different things. So we use that as well.
That's awesome. So I see we're at food. So let's talk about food.
Okay.
What was your best food experience, or did you have any bad food experience too?
We didn't have any bad food experiences. Pisco that you can see on the top left is like a local alcoholic drink. Otherwise, I ate a lot of soups with quinoa, which quinoa is like a grain, but it's more native. They have Inca Cola, which is like a local soda that tastes like bubble gum. That's what my husband's drinking. And then a lot of potatoes, because potatoes are from South America and the Andes, and they have over like 6,000 varieties of potatoes. So sometimes they were purple, sometimes different colors.
And they probably had it for like every meal of the day too, like breakfast potatoes and all that kind of stuff.
And so we just took pictures of some of the meals. Like, again, I had soup a bunch. We went to a market in Cusco where we had like a really cheap breakfast, which is the picture in the top left. The picture on the right with my husband chowing down, that's in Aguas Calientes, right outside of Machu Picchu the night before. And that's actually alpaca. And he's eating because, as we hunt here in Wisconsin and eat venison, they will eat the alpaca.
Interesting.
I didn't have it in me to order a whole plate, but I took a bite so I can say that I ate it. But so he ate a whole.
Did you like it, or did he like it?
Yeah. I mean, our family are hunters, so we're familiar with game, I guess. Yeah. But otherwise, I think Peru is known for its food. There's cuy, which is guinea pig. That's a traditional dish. We just never ended up ordering it. But it's like a delicacy there. Again, different cultures.
What about desserts?
Well, they had a lot of pastries.
Okay.
So there were some pastry shops or like bakeries that you could order food from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any secret travel tips? I see you have a slide here about getting there, or while you're there, or maybe even leaving or whatever.
I have travel tips in general.
Yeah.
For traveling. Well, before you go anywhere, just make sure, like we had to make sure that we had the proper vaccinations for where we were going in case we ran into any, like, I don't know, mosquitoes or whatever, because we're fairly close to the Amazon when you get to Machu Picchu. So we had to get some hepatitis boosters in order to go there. Make sure your passport won't expire within 6 months. That's just a general rule of thumb if you're going to travel abroad, because some countries won't accept it if it's within 6 months. What else? I have some tips on getting like cheaper flights on here if you wanted to write those down. In order to set up your phone for international usage, we use something called GigSky, which is like its own little SD chip that you can attach into your phone, and then you can buy minutes online in order to use it. So when we were at Machu Picchu, we were able to call our kids, like FaceTime with them to talk to them. We recommend using Airbnb so that you can cook your own food if you want to. We used Airbnb because we're just more comfortable in that setting, but we like enjoying the local food, so we went out and ate it. Let's see. Hostels are really great because they offer a lot of amenities. When we were exploring Lima on our last day, we used a hostel to store our bags for a reduced fee. We weren't staying there overnight, but then we also got to use their Wi-Fi. We got to hang out before we had to go to the airport. We could order food there, just hang out with all the people passing through, and walk to certain attractions and making sure that our bags were safe.
That's a great idea.
My hot tip is to pack bar shampoo on your carry-on, because then you don't have to worry about the liquid limits.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was a good tip.
Good tip.
What else? A lot of places offer free walking tours for tips. And we did that in Cuzco. And they're pretty thorough with like the history and what used to be there and things. So it's generally anticipated though that you'll tip at the end or possibly buy a product, but we just tipped and it was really informative. And visiting local markets to see food and maybe try local food because the prices are better there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, do you have anything else you want to share about your awesome trip?
No, just go to Ollantaytambo.
Yeah, and if you want to learn more about Peru, we did actually put together an awesome travel kit all about Peru. You have cookbooks in there.
Yep, I have cookbooks, some documentaries about Peruvian chefs. Some of the books that I read before I went to Machu Picchu, guidebooks, some music that we experienced while we were there is in the kit as well, and movies from the region.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience with us. And we hope to hear the experience of others in their travel locations. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.